Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in opposition of H.R. 1280, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. With something as important as police reform, it is important to garner many perspectives. The Justice Act, legislation Senator Scott and I introduced, is a product of my perspective as a law enforcement officer from Minnesota and Senator Scott's perspective as a black man from South Carolina. The Justice Act increases body cameras and implements duty to intervene and de-escalation training. It improves hiring and recruitment practices. It reinvigorates the principles of community policing to rebuild the relationships between law enforcement officers and the communities that they serve. The Justice Act, which received bipartisan support last Congress, includes several critical provisions that are supported by Democrats: the Walter Scott Notification Act, the National Criminal Justice Commission Act, and the Closing the Law Enforcement Consent Loophole Act. It even includes legislation that Vice President Harris introduced, the Justice for Victims of Lynching Act. Unfortunately, we are not considering the Justice Act today. We are instead, once again, exploring political gamesmanship through H.R. 1280. Now, when we voted on this legislation last year, the Democrats knew it was dead upon passage. But my good friends and I are in the Problem Solvers Caucus decided that this conversation was too important to let go. So we worked for months with representatives from both sides of the aisle, with representatives from the Congressional Black Caucus, with representatives from law enforcement and legal backgrounds on areas where we could find compromise between the Justice and Policing Act and my bill, the Justice Act. We discussed no-knock warrants, the 1033 program, use of force, record retention, and so much more. We were making such great headway, I truly believe that we could have put together a bipartisan package of reforms for our American communities who have been calling for change. Unfortunately, the other side walked away. As the election drew near, the priorities of my Democratic colleagues shifted. Their fight to retain power became more important than providing police reform for the American people. So now, we are here again, Mr. Speaker, to vote on the exact same bill without a single change. A bill that has zero input from Republicans, zero input or support from our law enforcement community. And I'll repeat that: zero input or support from our law enforcement community. We all want... Yes.
15 seconds. The gentleman is recognized for 15 seconds.
This is a bill that will no doubt make our communities less safe. We all want police reform. We all want change, but until such time we work together, this legislation is just another messaging bill for my Democrat colleagues. Thank you, and I yield back.